This cow sat in the snow long before anyone noticed her. A huge dark brown shape in a white empty field, steam rising from her nose, flakes collecting on her back and melting into tiny rivers that ran down her sides. And at first she looked like every other cow that had ever waited out a winter storm, quiet and patient. But if you had walked closer, you would have seen that something was different, because she was not shifting her weight, not pawing at the frozen ground, not even lowering her head to search for buried grass. She was just standing there, perfectly still, like she was guarding something precious. And in a way she was, because right beneath her wide, warm belly, hidden from the biting wind and the falling snow, there was a tiny kitten no bigger than a man's glove, black and white, soaked and shaking, its eyes barely open, its small chest fluttering like a broken bird's wing. And no one knew how it got there. Maybe it had wandered away from its mother, maybe it had been dropped, maybe it had crawled there out of pure instinct. But somehow, in the middle of that frozen field, it had found the only place where it could survive. And that place was under the body of a cow who chose not to move for 12 long hours. And if you think about it, that choice is what turned a simple animal into a quiet hero. Because cows don't know about kittens. They don't know about stories. They only know about warmth and danger and the feeling of something small pressing close to their skin. And when this kitten crawled under her, cold and scared, the cow must have felt that small trembling life. And instead of stepping away, instead of shaking it off, she stood still as snow kept falling and the wind kept blowing. Because something inside her said, "Do not move. Something is depending on you now." And while the world around them turned whiter and colder under that cow, there was a small pocket of heat, a tiny living shelter where a kitten's heartbeat could keep going. Minute by minute, and somewhere far away, people were going about their day, drinking hot coffee, turning on heaters, complaining about the cold, having no idea that in a field not far from them, a silent miracle was happening, because every minute that cows stood still was another minute the kitten got to live, and time in the cold is cruel. It moves fast for the small and the weak, fingers go numb, lungs struggle, hearts slow down. But under the cow, the kitten's tiny body pressed into her warm skin, soaking up heat like a sponge. And it did not die. It held on, even when the snow piled up around the cow's legs, even when ice formed on her eyelashes, even when her muscles must have ached from standing so long without moving, because cows are not made to be statues. They are made to walk and eat and lie down. But this cow did none of that. She chose to stay. And 12 hours is a long time to stand in the snow. 12 hours is the kind of time that makes even strong animals weak. But she did it anyway, because the kitten needed her. And sometimes the strongest love is not loud. It does not bark or cry or run. Sometimes it just stands still, quietly while the storm rages on, and that is what this cow did. She became a wall against the wind, a roof against the snow, a heater against the cold. And under her, the kitten breathed, small breaths, shaky breaths, but alive. And when you imagine that, when you picture a huge animal standing there, unmoving, while a tiny life hides beneath her, it almost feels unreal, like something out of a storybook. But this was real. It happened. And it happened because even animals we think of as simple have hearts that know when something needs help. And as the hours passed, the cow's body heat kept the kitten from freezing. But the cold was still winning outside, snow was still falling, and if no one came soon, even the cow would eventually have to move, because no body can stand forever. Not in that kind of cold. And that is when fate stepped in the form of a farmer who noticed something strange in the field. He had gone out to check on his animals after the storm had been going on for a while. And from a distance he saw this one cow not moving, and that worried him, because animals usually shift and walk and lower their heads. But she was just standing there, like a statue, and as he got closer he could see the snow piled up around her hooves and ice clinging to her fur. And that is when he knew something was wrong. Or maybe something was very right, and he slowly approached her, speaking softly, not wanting to startle her, and she did not run. She did not move away. She just looked at him with calm, dark eyes. Like she was saying, "Please, be careful. There is something here." And when he bent down and brushed away the snow under her belly, what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Because there, curled up in a tiny ball, was the kitten, alive but barely, its fur wet and matted, its body shaking from cold and exhaustion, and suddenly everything made sense. The cow's stillness, her patience, her strength. She had been protecting this kitten all night and all morning, and without her, there would have been nothing left to find, just a small frozen shape in the snow. But because she stayed, because she chose not to move, there was still a life to save. And the farmer carefully reached in and picked up the kitten. And the cow did not fight him. She did not panic. She seemed to understand that this human was here to help, and as the kitten was lifted into warm hands, the cow finally shifted her weight, like she had been holding it in for hours, and it was only then that you could really see how much effort it had taken her to stand there so long. How tired she must have been, but she had done it. She had kept the kitten alive until help arrived, and the farmer rushed the kitten inside, wrapping it in a towel, warming it slowly. Because when something is that cold, you cannot rush. You have to bring them back gently, and little by little. The kitten's breathing became steadier, its tiny heart stronger, and eventually it let out a small, weak meow, the sound of life returning. And outside, in the field, the cow finally walked. Slowly, carefully, like someone coming back from a long, hard duty. And she went to join the rest of the herd. But something about her felt different now, not in a way you could see, but in a way you could feel. Because she had done something extraordinary without ever knowing it was extraordinary. She had simply listened to that quiet instinct that told her to protect what was small and cold and scared, and that instinct saved a life. And as the kitten grew warmer and stronger inside the farmhouse, it had no idea that a cow had been its shelter, its heater, its hero. But the humans who saw what happened would never forget it, because it reminded them that kindness does not belong to just one species, that compassion can come from anywhere, even from a big, slow animal standing in the snow. And when the storm finally cleared and the sky turned blue again, the field looked peaceful, like nothing special had happened there. But in that quiet white space, a story had been written. A story about patience, about warmth, about a cow who chose to stand still for 12 hours so that a kitten could live. And maybe that is why stories like this touch us so deeply, because they show us what the world could be if everyone, even for just a little while, chose to be a shelter for someone else, chose to be the one who stands still in the storm so that another can survive. And somewhere in that farmhouse, as the kitten slept in a warm box, safe and alive, the echo of that choice still lingered, quiet and powerful, like the soft sound of snow falling on a cow's back while she held the world together for one tiny life.